I mentioned in my last video that there were a couple of things at the front of the bus that I wanted to get fixed. There is a little bit of rust around the windscreen, and also the driver's door needs a bit of adjustment because it's not closing flush with the body. And I've actually got the bus booked in to have both of those things fixed in a couple of weeks' time. So I don't want to go start ripping out windows and cutting holes in the roof and then have to drive the bus into town and potentially park it outside for a little while. So I'm going to hold off doing all of those big jobs until I get the bus back from the repairers. But there's a couple of smaller jobs that I can do to tick them off the list while I'm waiting for the bus to get repaired. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the automatic door opener. And this is the thing that I'm talking about here. So it's sitting in the stairwell, taking up a little bit of space, not a huge amount, but still it's something that I don't need. So I'll be getting rid of it. And I think they weigh about 10 kilos. So again, it's extra weight that I don't need. So you can see that the motor to open and close the door is in here. And it attaches to the door here. And then it's also bolted in. You can see here it's bolted in here and also I think in the floor. You can see there's some wires going through the floor under the bus, and I'll show you where they're going in a second. This lever here just switches it from automatic, which means there's a switch on the dash that'll open and close the door automatically. The reality is that most of the time when I'm camping, I'm going to be coming in and out of this door. I don't want the hassle of having to go climb over into the driver's seat every time I want to open and close the door. So I keep it set to manual anyway. So I'm really not using this thing, and it's just extra weight and extra space that it's taking up that I could use for other more useful things. So that's what happens if you try to start the bus when you haven't properly closed all the doors. So you can see behind me the side door here I've still got open. The emergency exit door at the back as well, although it's closed, is not actually locked properly. So if either of those doors are open, then you hear that annoying deafening alarm. So it's really important if you're going to take out the door opener before you do it to make sure all the doors are closed and you can start the bus normally without hearing any alarms. Because I've heard of people who have removed the door opener and disconnected the wiring only to discover that when they go to try and start the bus, they hear the alarm because the bus before they disconnected it had registered it as open. So you just have to make sure that you've got all the doors closed, that the bus is registering that the doors are closed and is happy to start normally. And then once you've done that, it should be safe to then disconnect the wires. Theoretically, we'll see. So the cables, the wires that are going through the floor of the stairwell underneath the motor there, you can see coming out under here, and there's a couple of plugs there that I'll be able to unplug. And then there's also this cable here that they're joined to that's running, you can see, up into this. And then also running into this bundle is this cable here, which is going up and around and is actually this. So you can see this going into the frame of the door. There's another plug. So I think this one, this wire here is probably what controls the sensor to say whether the door is actually open or closed, and these ones down here are controlling the electricity to supply the motor itself. I think. I have no idea what this thing here is that the wires are all going into. I'm not actually going to remove this because I really don't know what it is. I don't know if it's only for the door mechanism or if it has other functions as well, because there are a lot of wires coming out here and going elsewhere in the bus. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to unplug those plugs there, which should disconnect the wires going to the motor. And then I'm going to unplug this one here, which should disconnect the power to the sensor. Okay, so apologies here. It's really hard to film under the bus. There's not a lot of room. This is the underneath of the stairwell. So you can see these are the wires. So they're coming out from under the floor of the stairs and they're going to these plugs. So there's two plugs here. I should just be able to unplug. And okay. Well, it's a good thing I wasn't filming then because there was a lot of swear words involved. They were really firmly stuck in there, those plugs. Anyway, so I've managed to disconnect them. So they're free now. I should be able to pull it up through the floor, through that grommet. So that's those ones disconnected. Now for the one going into the door. Well, that one was easy, thank goodness. Okay, so that's been disconnected. Before I do anything else, I'm just going to try starting the bus just to make sure I don't get any funny alarms or any problems, and then I should be able to just unbolt the motor and take it out. All good. It's actually not as easy as it looks. This is really tight. I don't want to break this because I'm hoping I can sell this when I've taken it out. Get a little bit of money back for it. So I don't want to bust it. I cannot budge that at all. Okay. So I can't budge either of these bolts here. Before I go like forcing it even more, trying to get them off, what I'm going to try is undoing the ones that are attaching the motor to the wall, because there's a little bit of a gap here, and I'm thinking when I unbolt this from the wall, it'll drop down a little bit, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that'll just come out. I'm making this up as I go along, clearly. At least these ones are easy to undo. Now I'm thinking if this drops down and this is not just sitting up in there, if it's actually like attached up there, it may actually bend this, so it might not be such a good idea. Ah, success. Okay. Whew. Okay, now I should be able to easily just unbolt this. Swing that out. And there it is. It is actually quite heavy. I suspect it's more than 10 kilos. So yeah, that's a good thing to have out of the bus. So now that I've got that side entrance door disconnected and the motor removed, I also want to do the same thing for the rear emergency exit. Now it doesn't have an automatic opener, but it does have sensors connected to it that also will set off an alarm at the front. So now I want to see if I can find where all those wires are going and disconnect them as well. Okay, so this is my rear emergency door. If I open up this, you can see the door handle here. Over here, this thing here says door control, so it's obviously part of the sensor here, so I need to unplug that. I'm not sure what this little mechanism here is, whether that's also part of the door sensor unit. So I need to try and just figure out exactly what I need to disconnect here. These cables here are the only wires going into the door. Okay, so it's a bit hard to see, but if I wiggle the wires in the door, I can see that it's this wire here that's coming through, and it's connected to, it's actually two plugs, so it splits off. So it's this little plug here, and then there's another little plug there. Okay, so I've just unscrewed that from the wall. It's still connected, but it's just not attached to the wall, just to get it out of the way. So these plugs that are connected to the door control are going up into here. They're combining with whatever this little thing is, the wires from here, and going up into this cable that's running up behind here and across to here. So that's this cable here, and the wires from the door joining into that with these two plugs here. Now, in addition to the wires coming from the door and the door control, there's also this wire here that's joining into this main cable as well, and it's coming from up in the roof. And if I trace this one back, it's running up in the pillar here across to here. Now, this was an emergency exit sign that I took the panels and everything off when I took the ceiling down, but this was an emergency exit sign, so I'm going to be taking this off as well. So I want to be able to disconnect this wire, and I should be able to do that just by unplugging it there. Okay, so I've unplugged this little thing here, whatever it is, and I've unplugged the main door control. I've unplugged these two plugs here that are going to the door, and I've unplugged this one that's coming from the emergency light in the roof. So now this cable here that's running under the floor towards the front of the bus, the only thing I can see from this cable that's still connected now is this one here, which is going to my tail light. So obviously I want to keep that. So I've disconnected everything else that I think is associated with the door, and we'll see what happens when I go to start up the bus. Okay. Okay, well, the rear door is proving to be a bit more complicated than the front one was. So I turned the ignition and got the door alarm sound even though I disconnected everything. So there's obviously still something probably behind the dash that's connected to the sensor, and now it's recording that the sensor's been disconnected. I'm not sure. I really don't want to start pulling the dash apart. So after a bit of trial and error, I've realized that while I can't actually unplug any of the wires to the door without the alarm going off, I can unplug the wire that's going up to that emergency light in the roof, and it seems to be fine with that disconnected. So that's the only thing really that's in my way, and I really wanted to get rid of that. So I've at least disconnected that without any drama, so I'll be able to go ahead and remove that. If I want to disconnect the alarm from the rear door, I think it's going to have to be a bit more fiddling. I would have to take out the dash and have a look and find where that sensor wire is. I'm really not keen to do that. And it might be a good idea to still have the alarm on the door. I mean, it would be good to know if the back door's not properly shut when I go. So I think for now I'm just going to keep it. None of the little door control sensors or any of that wiring is actually in my way for the back door. It was only that emergency light in the roof. So I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. So the alarm will still sound if I turn the ignition on if this back door is not completely shut. But that's probably a good thing. And that's pretty much all I can do on the bus for now until it comes back from the repairer in 2 or 3 weeks' time. But it gives me a couple of weeks at least to just spend some time making sure I'm happy with the final design for the layout that I have planned inside the bus, and that I know which windows I'm actually going to be keeping, which ones I'm going to be taking out. So by the time the bus does come back from the repairer with the windscreen rust all fixed, I'll be ready to get cracking, and it'll be all systems go to get this conversion done.